What you're looking at here is a Sandy Torp Jimny XL that we have given the superior treatment. Let's chat about what we've done to this thing and how we turned it into what I think is the coolest car in the Superior fleet of vehicles. Out of the box, the Jimny is unreal. Solid axle, super light and nimble, great car straight off the showroom floor. But with the superior treatment, we have turned this thing into a little nimble weapon built to outplay big trucks on the tracks. Like all things from factory, there is plenty of room for improvement though. These things are super small, so tiny wheels, tiny ground clearance didn't make them super capable off-road. So we've given this thing stand a bit taller, heat more ground clearance, some big tyres to keep you out of the ruts. Lift kits are not just a simple set of springs and shocks, fit them in and go for a drive. We've gone front to back on this car, made sure we've corrected all the geometry to make sure it drives like it does out of the box. We've got caster corrected front and rear radius arms, making sure the pinion angle in the rear is corrected, as well as that caster in front, making sure she drives nice and straight on the highway. Adjustable Panhard rods front and rear, making sure the diffs are nice and aligned under that car, as well as heavy duty steering arms to make sure there's no worries about bending those off-road. Now, in the front of these Jimnys, they have a big cross member that when you lift them up, that front tail shaft's going to hit it. With our billet drop cross member, there's no more worries about that, as well as having that nice, shiny billet 70-75 cross member for extremely heavy duty strength. And to make sure this little animal handles amazing, we've got a set of our 3-way adjustable 2.0 remote reservoir shocks, giving you high and low speed compression adjustability, as well as rebound adjustment, making sure this thing handles amazing any terrain. If you're looking for a more budget-friendly shock, we also offer our 2.0 IFP monotube shocks that are an unreal upgrade over factory and really where you're going to step into that high-performing shock with a better budget-friendly price. We've got stainless steel reservoir mounts to make sure those reses don't get ripped off by tyres, as well as stainless steel shock shaft guards, making sure you've got plenty of protection when getting into the rocks and not damaging those lower shock eyelets. Plus, got a set of bump stop extensions, making sure that these shocks don't get bottomed out so they're performing the whole way through their life. And to keep all of the best driveline components protected, we've got a heap of underbody protection on this little weapon. Transfer case and gearbox guard, rear diff guard, as well as our radius arm mount guards, making sure when you're off-road, bashing through rocks and ruts, nothing underneath the driveline is torn apart. And to set the front off, we have got the Off-Road Animal Toro bar, making sure we've got plenty of protection against poor old Skippy, some steady driving lights, plenty of visibility, and anytime when self-recovery is needed, we've got the carbon winch that has everything sorted for you when you're stuck out bush. So now you've seen what this build is, it's time for us to check out where it started and how we got here. All right, we have got the Jimny XL in the workshop. It is time for us to put a whole bunch of our absolutely killer parts and turn this thing into a little off-road weapon. Stick around and you'll see at the end what we build out of this little thing. All right, so we haven't adjusted the Panhard rod as yet, as we're gonna do that once the vehicle's completely fitted out, the full lift kit's in the car, and it's back on the ground. Then we can adjust the Panhard rod to set the diff directly straight underneath the vehicle. All we're gonna do now is loosely fit this one so we can continue with the install of other products as well. So now we've got the Panhard in, we're just gonna loosely tighten the bolts up. Nothing too crazy, because we don't want to over tighten the bushes in the air. We're just gonna tighten it up so it's just not, the bolts aren't hanging out or anything like that. Once it's in there, we can then move on get ready to finalise this job once we've got the rest of the lift kit fitted. All right, so your tie rod is the rod behind the diff that ties the two wheels together, hence the name tie rod. So to firstly start removing this, we're going to need to remove the factory R-clips from each of the threads. Then we can get the nuts undone and get our ball joint splitter out to remove the tie rod ends. So if you don't have a ball joint splitter like we use to get the tie rods loose, what you can do is use a hammer, and you have to strike this part where the tie rod end is mounted to. You have to strike the cast knuckle. If you hit the tie rod end or hit the arm or hit the thread, it's never going to come loose. You strike this bit, it will pop it loose just like a ball joint splitter does. All right, so we're gonna get removing of the factory drag link. What I'm gonna do as well to make life a little bit easier is I'm gonna remove the steering dampener as well. At the chassis end, it's just a bolt through that end, so there's no splitting of a taper like this end. And it's gonna be a lot easier for me to do this on the bench with the ball joint splitter than try and get one up in here on the vehicle. So I'm just gonna remove it with the drag link as well. That way I can do it nice and easy. All right, so I just popped the wheel off just to give you a bit better look at how we do this. So what you wanna do when you're removing your tie rod ends, as these are fitted in from the bottom, you want to make sure you keep that nut on the thread. One, it helps with the ball joint splitter to go on there, but this stops it once we pop it out, as it's going to shoot out the bottom of it, which you'll see in a second. It's going to keep it from falling on your head. So just a good way to do, just help with a bit of safety. So we'll just pop that wheel off to show you that. As you can see, it cracked off fairly hard there, but the nut stopped it from falling out and it's ready to remove. Once your tie rod's all tightened up, we can put our split pins in. So we're going to go ahead and fit our steering dampener back into the vehicle. Something great about the Jimnys is the fact that it's chassis mounted on this end and then mounted to the tie rod end on the steering box side. That means we don't have to adjust this, so we can go ahead and bolt it straight back in and it's set to the correct length it needs to be. Before tightening up the dampener, we're going to put some blue Loctite on both of the threads. That way you've got no worries of it falling out later on. Before dropping the vehicle down on the ground, checking over to make everything's installed correctly, you want to make sure your Superior Engineering logo is facing outwards. If that's correct, you can then go ahead, drop the vehicle down on the ground, tighten up your dampener mount, and you're good to hit the road or move on to the next job you're doing. All right, first thing I'm going to do before removing the rear shocks is make sure your diff is supported. Whether you're working on a hoist like us or on the ground at home, you're going to make sure the car is secured in place and then have some support under the diff to make sure when you unbolt these shocks it doesn't drop away, keeping you nice and safe. So we've got this lip here. On the inside of our yoke here has the same lip. And those two are going to locate together like that, nice and easy. So what we're doing is working on one side at a time, making sure the diff doesn't want to walk out and just roll away when we pull both radius arms out. So doing one at a time is definitely going to save you a lot of heartache of this diff trying to disappear. So what we've got here is our new extended bump stops. Now this by itself without the space on it is to suit your 2-inch lift, and then putting our spacer on, beginning the install. What we do is put the bolt all the way up the center, so it's sticking out, put up inside the factory bump stop location, and it comes all the way at the top. All right, so easiest way to know your radius arms are installed the correct way is our Superior Engineering logo is on the outside facing out so you can read it. And then we have a notch in here to miss up here on our cross member mount. If that is all correct, you know that this radius arm is installed exactly how it should be. All right guys, now we've got the car back down on the ground, we need to check our Panhard alignment. Easiest way to do that is with a straight edge measuring tape outside of the tyre to the chassis on both sides, making sure where you measure it on the chassis can be replicated on both sides. That way we can get the exact difference in measurement of where that Panhard needs, whether it needs to be longer or shorter. We'll check that now and see how much this one needs to be adjusted. All right, so we've done our measurements and I've worked out that the diff is sitting 10 millimeters to the driver's side of the vehicle, meaning the Panhard rod is too short. What that now means I have to do is take that 10 millimeters and halve it, and we're gonna push the diff back this way 5 millimeters by lengthening the Panhard 5 millimeters, and that way the rear diff is gonna be perfectly centralized under the vehicle, and then we can tighten everything up. So to get the overall measurement of the Panhard rod, we're measuring from center to center of the bolts. That way we know that is the exact overall measurement that we need to change. We've wound the Panhard adjuster nut out 5mm from where the lock nuts were set. Now wind those in up against it just to make sure it doesn't rotate, put it back in the vehicle. So I've just rechecked that measurement. We're bang on 930 center to center. Now we can double check our measurements of the tyre to the chassis again, make sure it's all straight. So we've just checked our measurements again. The measurement I took before, it was 360 and 350. Now I've taken the measurements again, it is 355 perfectly on both sides. And I know that that Panhard's perfectly aligned. All that's left to do is tighten those bolts up, and this one's complete. All right, so now as part of tightening up our Panhard rod, we've got to tighten our 2 lock nuts here. Now something we see all the time that is a big mistake made when doing these up. So people get 2 shifters on them, and what they actually do is they crank these nuts tight against each other like this in opposite directions, but it doesn't actually become tight up against your adjuster end here. So what you need to do is do these lock nuts up one at a time, keep them separated. Wind this one up nice and tight up against the end of our adjuster. We'll tighten that, and then we'll bring this nut in to tighten down on top of this nut as well as a second fail safe. Do not do them tight up against each other. All right, now we've finished with the suspension build. It's time to get the car back to that Superior HQ where the boys have the bull bar, winch and spotlights ready to go on. All right, off-road test number 1 done. This thing is so much fun. Hooning down corrugated roads and then come back here, dial the shocks down, cruising up a couple of little hill climbs to test it out. It is so capable, such a fun little car with all its, it just feels like a tiny little patrol or Land Cruiser. Everything in this thing is great. The geometry's perfect. When I'm been hooning, wrapping around some corners and that sort of thing, it's super stable. Love driving this thing. Very keen to see how it goes further off-road. I reckon some crawler gears, lockers, this thing is absolutely unstoppable, but I'm impressed with off-road test number 1.
Piece of cake.
All right guys, now you've seen what we offer and what this little animal is capable of. We have all of these parts on the website and they're available individually or in full kits, so you can buy it once and have this absolute animal in your driveway. So all you need to do, jump over to superiorengineering.com.au or even give us a call on 07 5433 1411 so you can have a Jimny like this and come and have a heap of fun like I just did.